Hey, what's up, everybody? I know it's been a bit. Haven't really, worked on this in a while because I've had, internship and I've had, school starting up soon. So kind of getting ready for a lot of stuff, and it's been a bit hectic. So I never really had the urge to, take more time out of my day to work on this. But now, since things have been slowing down a bit, we're getting to the end of the internship. School's starting up soon, so I probably won't be even having that much work to do during the beginning of school. I will probably, take this time to finish up the project. So in order to do that, I thought it would be a very good idea to create a data generator. Now, a data generator is simply it simply just generates data for the database. Simple enough. So I built this in C Sharp. I just finished it. C Sharp.net, and it's basically well, we'll show you how it works, and then we'll get into detail. So pretty much, it goes by flight, right? So you want to generate, how many flights do you want to generate? A flight contains, a flight, seat regions, which tell you pretty much which region. I don't know if I told you about this change. I changed the database a little bit, so I guess let's get this out of the way. I changed the database a little bit to include seat regions like economy, economy plus, and so forth. The reason for this is because you can put a price on that, and it's much easier to handle by price if you have it priced by region, which I think kind of makes sense. I don't know, but I think so. Anyway, so it has to generate the flight, it has to generate the seat regions for the flight, and then for each region it has to generate seats. So we'll just do it. So let's see if I do 50. It takes a little bit and finishes. So now how does this work? Let me get out of this. So I decided not to handle it via CSV. Instead, I decided to handle it by simple insert, into whatever. It kind of makes it easier for me. And I also handled the ID by GUID through C Sharp. So anyway, simply enough, if I hit this button and hit done, boom, it'll insert. And then if I hit what's it called? Sorry about that. I'm like blanking out. Then, so simply, I should probably mention this first. Sorry about that. Simply, there are three files that will generate the flight, seat regions, and the seats. Simply, you have 1, 2, and 3. Simply do them in the order in which it says. And then the third one is here, which is seats. Oh, I hit the wrong button. That's great. Now it's going to take ages to load up properly. There we go. Oh, cancel. Or not. Alright, I can go. Sorry about this, everyone. I just hit the wrong button. Shit happens. Okay. And I'm just going to drop this in and hit that. Boom. Now, I don't think I actually have it saved, so I'm going to go to my code and just copy this and paste and remove this. So let me just do this real quick. Sorry about this. Oh, I should probably upgrade my Postgre. Yeah, so let me just get rid of this. Sorry about this. Okay. Let me hit this button. Boom. You get what's it called? You get all the flights, and then inside here, you'll get the region and the seats for that region, and you'll get all the regions. Now, I handled this in a couple ways, and I'm going to take the time to really just go through and explain how I did it. So let's start off with let's start off with the variables at the top. I have two randoms. I don't actually think I need the second random, right? So that actually maybe so probably yeah, I don't need the second random. So I have one random. This random is pretty much going to be used by everything in order to determine pretty much. I will have a lot of randomization because it's a data generator. There's got to be a lot of randomization. So that's what I used. I used it quite a bit. Region ID array simply. So I have region ID and flight ID. The reason why I have these two, put up here, is because there's going to be a lot. So I'll be able to pretty much use region ID array and flight ID array a lot. So you'll see I use flight ID for when I'm generating seat regions. So I can basically say, hey, for this flight ID, I want these regions. And then for seats, I could just say, hey, for this region, I want these seats. And it kind of works out. and I'll show you that in detail later. Int previous region end is for regions where basically I can keep it up here so that it's globally, declared, and I can use it. So what I can say is simply, hey, when when this ends, I want that number saved. So what it does is it handles it by like, I'll get into it. Pretty much it handles seats by like A1, A2, A3, A4, B1 through B4, and it does that per region. So it'll basically say, hey, when the last region is done, give me when the last region is done, I want to keep that number, and then you use that, and then when the next region starts up, so that it can start at like B5 or something. So that's how it works. And then int user choice is basically where I just say how many I want to generate. This one about, should be self-explanatory. First thing I do is I check if each of these files exist. I basically just erase them. So the idea is every time you generate a file, it's going to take whatever's inside of the code of the file, anything that's inside the file, and just erase it and restart it. So every time you generate, you never have to worry about deleting previous stuff if you wanted to. It's all its own independent thing. Next is okay, so this is basically now where the actual thing happens. For every one of these loops, it calls add DB entry, which is the start to something bigger. So this is add DB entry. Previous region end is 0 here. I actually don't think we use that. That was a thing because I wanted to put there. Region ID array dot clear. I think that was important. Yes. So I haven't really looked. A lot of this code was just me messing around. I never really double checked to see if I think I needed things and I didn't need things, so bear with me a little bit. It was just some scrap code together, some spaghetti code, if you will, because I just wanted to get something that works so that I can quickly generate stuff. This is not something that's production ready. But basically, every single time, so region ID contains all the IDs for region, and for all the regions for a specific flight. I think it was, right? Yes. And I want to clear it on every new flight, every new DB entry. So make sure that it's fresh for the new one. So that was kind of how it is. String flight query is simply just, hey, this is the query for the flight. We have seat region query, which is a list of seat regions for each individual flight. So think of these all as for one flight. That's what the DB entry is. It's handling flight by flight. So you have a query to add the flight in. You have the list of seat regions you would like to add in, and then you have the list of seat queries per flight. Now we get started into the actual logic. We generate the flight first, we generate the seat regions based off of that flight, and then we generate the seats based off of those seat regions. So simply, now we use file stream and stream writer in order to kind of make this work, right? So we open up a file stream and we say, hey, we want to generate a file stream to a file called seat regions using the mode append, and we want to write to it. Simply put, what this does is this will check if the file name this at this path or whatnot. You would put a path here, but I want to keep it directly, in debug, so this kind of just works for me. All it would do is say, hey, does this file exist? If it doesn't, let's create it. If it does, let's open it. And then stream writer just pretty much sets a stream to write to that specific file that you have up there. So I use that in everything. And the good thing about using is that it will close once it hits this, it will close the file and the file stream and the stream writer. So it's much easier to keep track of like what's open and closed if you do it this way. Flight query now generates a flight. Sorry, okay, I don't know why I do that type of stuff. That does not help you in any way. So, flight query. A flight query is as we mentioned before, it's the string that holds the query. Generate flight is the function that basically takes things, handles it, randomizes a whole bunch of data, puts it into a string that is the insert into, and then pops that right in here. Now let's look at generate flight while we do that. No, actually, you know what? Let's look at well, the last thing you really have to know is that, hey, we're just going to take that query and append it to the file. That's really all it is. But, okay, so let's look at generate flight now. How does it work? right? So we have a lot of variables here, but there's nothing really crazy to know. So we have car, gate car, right? This basically, all this does is that we have an array of characters, A through H, basically all the different types of possible gate letters. Gate A, gate A5, gate A7, that type of stuff. String ID is simply the ID. We're using GUID in order to handle it. See, me personally, I have no idea what this toString does for the GUID, but I know it can only be certain amounts. It will tell you if you put an incorrect one. It'll tell you which ones it can be. But pretty much I use this for all my IDs to generate a new global unique ID. That's what it's called. And it helps me when I'm dealing with the IDs and stuff like that for this. Company FK is alright. So company FK is simply the foreign key for which company we're dealing with. Now I have up to 6, so I use rand here to randomize a number from 1 to 6. Basically, this is inclusive, this is exclusive. Date time. So I have two things, right? I have date time, depart time, and I could probably make this string.empty because that's just, I guess it's better. I'm not sure if it's better etiquette, but that's what I'm gonna handle. Anyway, so we're obviously gonna want to deal with date time. We're gonna want to deal with depart time, board time, and arrival time. So we have two types of things. We have depart time and depart time format. So we have a time and a formatted time. So the way this works is that I take I take a date time, handle it like a date time, and then convert it to a string and put it in there. I like to keep a variable for it because it keeps it neater, I guess, and I can just reference it, but whatever. You don't have to do that, I guess, but that's what I like to do. So I'll take this date time, I'll do whatever I need to do with it, and then I'll just put it formatted properly into a string. Like that, pretty much. But like, you can literally just take this and use it, so it really isn't that bad. I actually probably should have done that, but I kind of figured it out after I handled it the way, because I wasn't sure I was going to go approach this, and once I realized I could just do this. There was a really big daisy chain of just long things, and then I realized, hey, I can just do this and it works. So that's the thing. Anyway, depart time, same thing applies here. We'll get into how everything is pretty much stored, like in terms of date time. Depart gate, all it does is it takes gate chars, randomizes it from 0 to gate chars.length minus 1. I could have literally just done 0 to 7 or whatever it is. But it helps. You could just add something here and it will still work. Anyway, so then we do plus convert toString ran.next 0 to 19. All this does is simply say, hey, this is gate one of these numbers and a number from 1. Oh, sorry, I should have done this because I don't want it to be from 0. I want it to be from 1. So all it is basically, hey, this is from 1 to 18. So it would be so it will generate a number and a letter for that gate. So it would be like A10, B5, and that's kind of what it does. Ran next for origin and destination. Pretty much just say, hey, we're gonna randomize this number from 1 to 6 for these as well, because that's the amount of destinations and origin, basically the amount of airports we have. I should put something in here where the origin can't be the destination, but I kind of didn't really think that through, so that probably isn't too bad. I could probably figure it out. Basically what I could probably do is say, hey, if these are equal, randomize it again or something like that. I don't know, because they're so little numbers, it's so easy to get the same number twice. Anyway, same thing with date time, arrival time, that, and string arrival gate, same thing applies. So that's all the basic variables. Now let's get into actually what happens. So depart time is generate depart date, arrival time is generate arrival date, which gives you the depart time, and board time also gives you the depart time. The reason why you need the depart time for the other two is that you want to generate, the depart time could be literally anything. Arrival time has to be obviously a time that's after depart time, and maybe within a couple hours difference kind of thing. Maybe at most like 15-20 hours at most. I don't know. There are planes that go on 20 hours. I'm not going crazy, right? So yeah, you want a depart time and you want arrival time that's after the depart time at a reasonable time, and then you want the board time to be before the depart time. So you need to have the depart time for reference for the other two. Now let's look at generate depart time, depart date, arrival date, and so forth. So immediately we have all these variables. Simple enough. Year, month, day, hour, minute, second. That's pretty obvious for a date time, you know. We want to generate a random year from now and like a couple years later, you know. So I don't know exactly how long flight websites kind of handle this, but I chose pretty much 2 years in 3 years in advance. Okay, I think that's it, right? Kind of 2 years now because we're almost in 2020, but you know, I guess we still have a couple months to go. Anyway, month I generate obviously 1 to 12. Day I'll generate 1 to 31, and you'll see what I do with day to make sure it's a valid date time. Hour, minute, and second, pretty self-explanatory. Now the first thing I do is I check if day is greater than 29. If it's greater than 29 and it's February, I should have probably just made this 29. That probably would have worked. Anyway, yeah, so 29. Day is 29. I still don't know because I think sometimes it could be 28. And I think a date time might break if I put a year that has it as 28. So whatever the case may be. Anyway, if so that's how you handle February's being 29. If day is equal to 31, it checks the days that aren't 31, that don't have a 31 in there, and just sets it to 30. Then it basically creates a this date, basically a new variable called this date time, sets it as all those things, and then puts it in here. You could literally just do return new date time and then all this, but I decided to add a variable to it. At the end of this, you have a depart time, a randomized depart time that's put inside of here. Now, now you need an arrival time based on that depart time. It's pretty simple actually. So you have an hour, minute, and second. You're typically going to keep the same. Yeah, so you're pretty much going to keep the same date. The thing is, right, is that you want to basically add time to the depart time because that's kind of what's happening on your arrival time. It's like, hey, this is this many hours ahead. Like, you know, when you look at a depart time, you think, hey, I'm going, you know, I'm going to be there in 5 hours. Well, how do you get to that time? You add 5 hours. Logically thinking, this is stupid, but it makes sense. So this is how you would, you wouldn't really create a new date time. You would just add to the previous date time. And that's kind of how I handle it here. This time is basically equal to the depart time, but you add a random hour, a random minutes, and a random seconds. And I kind of made it just up to like 1 to 14 pretty much, just to make it not too crazy. And this should be 60. Well, looking at bugs in the code, this is great. And then return here. Now, sorry about that. Now we have last thing is generate board time. Now the board time is basically literally a negative time. You take it from it's basically by minutes. This is how I handled it, by 20 to 45 minutes before. So all I do is I take this, I just divide it by -1 and throw it in here, and it kind of works. It works pretty much perfectly. The board time is proper, and then it returns it. So that's how you handle the times inside of this. So after that, all I do is, because I want to make it for proper PostgreSQL code, I'm pretty sure they handle it, but I like to handle it the way I am. The way I normally do it, so I just made it in this type of format, which is HHMMSS. So by the way, I found out this HH basically makes it 24-hour time. This capital HH, I think that does, yeah. So that's kind of how you handle it. What else is there? String flight query. Okay, so flight query is pretty much now it's just taking everything that we've created here, putting it into a string. And I really did this poorly because I completely forgot how things worked when I did this. I don't know what I was thinking adding those in when you don't need to. I fixed it. I fixed myself further down. You'll see. But anyway, it takes that, puts everything that we have in here, sets flight ID equal to the current ID so we can work with that, and then returns flight query. And when it returns that flight query based on all the values, and it just appends it to the file. That's how you handle the flight. Now we have to look at some things a bit more complex. Not really that complex, but there's a little bit to them. So seat regions is where we start. Our seat region would be economy, economy plus, a business class, and so forth. And each of those have their own seats. So I kind of wanted to so my program, my website is basically structured in such a way, or my database is. So got to reflect that. So we have that seat region query. Pretty much as just a list of all the seat regions that queries that we have, and we want it to basically equal to this function that will take the flight ID and generate the seats for that, the seat regions for that specific ID. So for that flight, so generate seat regions. Obviously, it's going to return a list string, so we could just put the whole list of things inside of it. String is current flight, so it's just the current flight that we're dealing with. Int num regions. Now this is pretty interesting. So I have it a minimum of 4. A minimum of 3, a maximum of 4. So the plane can only have 3 or 4 regions, just for sake of simplicity. It has a query array. Array is simply the array of queries that we are going to then display out or output to the file. List of IDs, which I don't actually think we use here, right? Do we use it here? Oh, we do use it here. Okay, yeah. So I don't use it in the next one. I don't even think you need to, but I could be entirely wrong. So we create, yeah, I don't even know why I use it. Okay, I could delete that anyway. Sorry about that. So, whatever, we'll just explain it. Basically, it's an ID, contains all the IDs pretty much. Region names will also contain all the region type, possible region names, starting with business, going to economy, economy plus and basic economy. This way you can situate it by saying, hey, 0 is business, 1 is economy, and so forth. And honestly, I should probably switch these up, but I'll do it later. So business economy, economy plus and basic economy. Now, these are basically, I tried to tweak this to be a little bit smarter when it calculates prices. The whole idea of this is that, business is obviously going to be higher than, and much higher than, economy plus, right? Economy plus is going to be higher than economy. Economy is going to be higher than basic economy. That's the idea. So the idea is that I render business anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 as like a big ground, and then everything else just takes what that top one, the one above it is, and just reduces it by X amount of price. So, and then you check it kind of by how, what's the lowest price, this could be 1,000, this could be, 1,000, whatever. So the lowest this could be is like 500 and 800 kind of thing, So you're kind of going from 500 to 800, and that's like your lowest range price for the next one. That's kind of how I thought about it, and I just thought this would be a good idea to do because it kind of makes it more realistic in the prices. Even though it's not perfect, it gives a general idea. And then I just add those into a integer array of just, starting from business, going to economy, economy plus, kind of matching this, so it kind of connects. Anyway, moving on, this is where we actually add the regions. So for all the regions that are in there, we add the GUID to the ID list. We add ID to the region ID array, and then we just I guess that because I do it this way, I guess ID would actually make sense to keep here. So I was stupid. And then just add the query, which is basically this, to the query array, and then just return query array. So then when query array returns, it goes into the seat region query, and then for everything in seat region query, write line for that query, and that gives us our seat regions. Now lastly, we gotta generate seats. Now just gonna tell you, I'm pretty sure everyone's done this. When you want to get the seat queries, you handle this by J, because that's what you're dealing with, not by I. I don't know why I left this as I and just ran the code and could not figure it out why it was I, and then apparently because I couldn't figure out the problem, and apparently it was just because it was I fixed the whole problem like that. Oh my god. You could see why that's a problem, because we're dealing with J in this loop of seat queries, so you want to kind of handle all seat queries with J. Anyway, so the way this is set up now is a little bit different than the rest we've been doing, but kind of makes sense still. Like it's structured a little bit differently. So in this, we have, for every region, we want to generate seats and output those for that specific region. So what we do is we look for a seat query, we generate seats. We have a generate seats function. Seat query is the array of queries. Generate seats is a function that will generate seats for a particular region. We send the region ID array, and then we send the previous region end, which is kind of how we handle the seat numbers. And if you remember, by default it's 0, so this means no effect will happen if we send it on the first one, which is what we kind of want. Okay, following this, let's take a look at the generate seats function. It's also not too long. We pretty much, we have a list, a query array list again, string ID, which I actually don't even use here. Like, I don't actually use it here. It's not really useful to use here, so whatever. Anyway, call array is for A, B, C, or D, it will pretty much be a different seat number, a seat letter, sorry, for different columns. So column A, column B, column C, column D. Referenced by this I. So I, will handle this like innately because of the way it's set up. J, so I have this as a grid style loop, right? You're handling by a grid. So that means you need columns and rows. And simply all you'll need to do is you'll need to add to a list variables as you handle them. So all you do here is you take a query array.add, you add this in, you have the GUID, and then you have call array, and then previous region plus J plus 1. Pretty much it's a number, and it's going to handle by the previous region, and you're just going to increment it for every, the idea is basically for every column, you're going to increment to, whatever J is, and then restart. So for A, it's going to be A1 through 4. For B, it's going to be 1 through 4, and then so forth. And then by the end of that, you're going to have 4 here. You're going to take, basically you want to do previous region end plus equals this number. And it will just take that and say, hey, this is where we're going to start next. And that's kind of the go. Anyway, that's how you handle, seats. I named all of these tests in null and so forth just for testing purposes. And then you return the query array, which gets you to this, puts it in here, then it runs it on everything that's in the query. It will output that and then clear it and go back to the top and do the next region, and that kind of handles it through every region. Anyway, that's kind of the general idea behind this this script. It was a lot of fun to make. It was really cool to see this actually work, and I was able to create something that's going to benefit me in the long run. And I would have, there are definitely a lot of applications that that you can use. For example, I think it's market. I can't remember. I know there's a couple of them that just generate random base data, but the problem with those is none of them kind of give me what I want in terms of like authenticity and shit. So whatever. So it's like I want to have my own so that I can generate stuff that's more catered to me rather than just general data. Plus, you couldn't even generate date times and stuff, I don't think, with it. So, but if anyone knows a better, one of those data generators online, that'd be great. I would love to know. But yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I got to get better at talking. That's my main issue. So that's why hopefully through these I can get better at talking and speaking to, to people or whatnot. So, about code and stuff. So anyway, thank you a lot for watching, and I'm going to see you next time. Peace.